Gather round the flickering candlelight and prepare to cross the veil. Each week on the Boocifer Séance, your ghostly guides, Mrs. and Mr. Boost, summon a chilling new tale from the other side. From haunted mansions and cursed forests to restless spirits with unfinished business, this spectral duo dives deep into spine-tingling ghost stories that will haunt your dreams. Whether it's a forgotten legend or a real-life haunting, no story is too eerie for the Boos to conjure. So light a candle, clutch your blanket tight, and dare to join the seance, because once you listen, something might just follow you home. Enter, if you dare.
This video discusses difficult and potentially distressing themes. If you are sensitive to this material, please proceed with caution. Viewer discretion is advised.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Oh, welcome to Season 3, Episode 1 of the Boocifer Séance podcast. Oh, man. You guys excited? I'm excited.
I'm very excited. This one's a spooky one.
This one might be a good season kickoff. You tell me why you think this is my favorite. All right, so we are for season 1. Well, season 3. We are going to be talking about the Dyatlov Pass. I don't know if any of you guys heard about the incident that happened. I guess you'll learn on Dead Mountain. And why it was called Dyatlov Pass. But we're gonna teach you. We're gonna tell you we're gonna dive deep, all the theories, and then we have some questions at the end that we would love to know your point of, like, which theory hits home with you the most, which was more chilling to you. If you would have done it yourself, if you would have went hiking yourself, But I'm excited. I'm excited for this one. I'm excited.
Alright, you ready for my spooky ghost telling?
I'm ready for the best part of the podcast.
Alright, here we go. It says, the wind doesn't just blow in the Ural Mountains, it howls. Not like a storm you wait out, not like something you can shelter from. This is the kind of wind that feels alive, the kind that presses against your chest at night, like something is trying to get in. It's February 1959. 9 experienced hikers, young, trained, confident, set out across the frozen wilderness of what is now known as Dyatlov Pass. Led by Igor Dyatlov, they weren't amateurs. These were people who understood survival, who understood risk, who understood the mountain, and yet the mountain didn't care. Somewhere out there, under a sky so black that it would swallow sound, something went wrong. Horribly wrong. Their tent was found cut open from the inside. Think about that. Not collapsed, not ripped by an animal, but cut from the inside, as if whatever they were running from was already outside, and they chose the freezing dark over staying inside that tent for even one more second. Barefoot, underdressed, scattered, they fled into temperatures that would kill a man in minutes. Search teams followed their tracks down the slope, orderly at first, but then chaotic, and then gone, as if panic itself had a direction and then lost it. Days later, the bodies began to surface. 2 near a fire that barely burned. 3 more frozen mid-motion as if trying to return to the tent, as if they realized too late that whatever they fled from might have been safer than the cold. And the others, those took months, buried beneath the snow, broken, not just dead, but damaged in ways that didn't make sense. Crushed ribs, skull fracture, injuries described as being comparable to a car crash, but there was no car. One was missing her tongue. No signs of a struggle, no clear attacker, no explanation. And then the details that don't sit right. Traces of radiation on their clothing. Witness reports of strange orange lights in the sky that same night. Local legends warning of that mountain, calling it a place you just don't go. A place you don't ever come back from. The official answer? A vague, almost dismissive conclusion. An unknown compelling force. But what does that mean? An avalanche? There's little evidence of that. A military test? Then why the silence, the secrecy, the contradictions? Something inhuman? Something we don't understand? Or something much simpler and somehow much worse? That nature itself can turn on you without warning, without reason, and without mercy. Tonight, we're not just talking about a mystery. We're stepping into a moment where logic fractures, where survival instincts override reason, and where 9 people made a decision so desperate that it still echoes across decades. So as you listen, ask yourself, what would make you cut your way out into the freezing dark? And more importantly, what was waiting out there that made them believe that they had no other choice?
Oh, that was. I got goosebumps for this one. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, Rogers. So,
I think you carried the weight on the research on this one, so I'm gonna let you talk till you win, and then I'll step in where I have stuff.
you hear that? Talk till I win. He knows a winner. All right, so this happened February 1959. 9 experienced hikers travel into Ural Mountains of Russia. None lived, causing the Dyatlov Pass Incident to be one of the most craziest mysteries of all time. So what happened? So the story, there's cameras and diaries of the group. Cameras and diaries of the group were found at the campsite that showed what they were thinking and what was happening. To begin it all, we go back to Ural Polytech Institute, where a group of former and current students formed a group to trek across the Ural Mountains. They were all grade 2 hikers, and completing this would have made them grade 3, which in Russia was the most prestigious hiking certificate. The trek that they were about to do was rated a high difficulty, which would have been perfect for their grade 3 certificate. They brought no booze, no cigarettes, so there was no distractions. Their goal was to reach the mountain of Goro Orton. They were properly prepared, and they started on about January 25th, and they made it to a nearby village for the night and began their hike on the 27th. On the first day, Yuri Yudin, so it started off with 10 of them. There was actually 10 hikers, but the 10th hiker, Yuri Yudin, 21, began to suffer severe joint pain and had to stay back. This would save his life. So from the 10 hikers, now to the famous 9. The leader was Igor Dyatlov, a well-respected, well-knowledge, and well-experienced hiker. What's my place? As they started their hike, severe weather through the now called Dyatlov Pass caused them to lose their bearings and eventually end up on the side of a mountain known by the local tribe as Dead Mountain. It was late and the weather was severe, so Dyatlov made the decision to set up camp and hunker down until sunrise. It was said they did not make it to sunrise. Dyatlov told Yuri he would telegram back to them once they've reached back, or once they've come back from their journey. Yaula believed it would take 16 days, so Yuri waited weeks and never heard from them. It was then he reported them as missing, so the search party was sent out by the end of February. February 26th, the search party located the tent where it was believed they spent their final night. Investigation showed the tent was cut from the inside by one of the hikers. Something must have scared them enough that they had to cut themselves out in attempts to flee. It looked like they had been scared so badly that they destroyed their own shelter to escape, and some ran with no shoes, and none were wearing properly dressed clothes for the 30 degrees they were about to run in. Some were even in their underwear. All nine footsteps were discovered leaving the campsite. The footsteps were extremely organized and calm despite how the campsite seemed. The footsteps seemed to have been in a single file line down the hill. Some were barefoot, some were socked, and some hardly had clothes on, as they slowly froze to death. So we had the tent located, footprints located, so now where are the bodies? One search member noticed something brown near an old cedar tree, and also found remains of an old fire, and the tree looked as if someone tried to climb it. Next to the fire was the first bodies. Yuri Dershurkian. These names are going to be really hard, so just bear with me on that one. So these are the hikers.
Stick to first names.
Yeah, we're just well, it's going to be hard when a lot of them are named Yuri. So the first one, Yuri. Yuri was found face down, wearing a short-sleeved shirt, swim trunks, 2 socks, and no shoes. His injuries: he had burns on his head and foot, gray fluid coming out of the mouth, and scrapes and bruises, and his ears, nose, and lips were covered in blood. The it was learned that gray fluid meant a strong force had to have happened to his chest in order to have that gray fluid coming out of his mouth. And they also thought to be self-inflicted and done in agony as he was being frozen to death. Maybe he fell off the tree. My thoughts, or maybe someone hurt him. But his death was ruled as hypothermia. The second one they found was the other Yuri. Yuri Yuri K. We'll go with Yuri K. He was 23. He was lying next to Yuri D, wearing long sleeve shirt and 1 sock. His injuries were he had heavy bruising, cuts, burns on foot, legs, and hands, and in his mouth was a chunk of his own knuckle. To have appeared to have stopped him from losing consciousness, or to just keep him awake and not. I guess that's the same as consciousness. But others believed it was to keep him from, or stop him from crying as well. Body 3 was, the third body was Igor Dyatlov. Dyatlov. He was found face up.
Dyatlov?
Yeah, Dyatlov. Yeah. That one. He was found face up with both fists clenched. His injuries were he had abrasion and bruising on the ankles, cuts and bruises on his face, and he was missing his jaw incisor. The coroner said the injuries were consistent with a fist fight, but his death was ruled hypothermia as well. Body number 4, and the first female to be found, she was better dressed than the others, but her right sleeve sweater was torn off. Her injuries were she had abrasions and bruising on her hands and face, a long bruise on the side like she was hit with a baton. So it appeared those two had been trying to, it seemed like body 3 and 4 were fighting to get back to the tent, but we still don't know. A week later, body 5 was found on March 5th, and he was lying face down, covered in snow. His injuries appeared to have internal bleeding in his temples and a large skull fracture. It is possible that he survived 1 hour after these injuries. The theory is he got disoriented, dizzy, and collapsed on the ground and died of hypothermia. The kicker is, and there's more bodies to be discovered, but all bodies seem to have been moved after death. That's what they say, that all bodies seem to be moved post-mortem. It has not been confirmed nor denied, so we don't know. You tell me. Months later, the Mansi tribe found a den created by the surviving hikers. This was a last-ditch effort for the remaining 4 to survive the cold, but it didn't work. So, that leaves us with body number 6. These bodies were found, so the original bodies were found March. These started to be found in May. She was found draped over a natural ledge with running water flowing next to the body. She was missing her lips, which ended up exposing her teeth and upper jaw. She was missing the soft tissue on her cheek, so you can see the rest of her jaw. She had 10 broken ribs, massive hemorrhaging in the heart, missing her eyes and her tongue. They know that this had all had to have happened while she was alive, because blood was found within the stomach, saying she was pretty much alive when all this happened. And she was the first one where the cause of death was not hypothermia, but it was the hemorrhaging in her heart. And then body 7. He was the oldest member. He had 3 pants on, a long jacket over the sweater, with 2 hats and a scarf, and boots. His injuries were 5 broken ribs, a flailed chest. He was missing tissue above the right eyebrow, exposing skull, a deep gash in the back of the head, and he also, too, was missing his eyes. But his death was ruled hypothermia, despite all that we just heard. And body 8, Alexander, was found near den. He was found near the den and had rips on his jacket and socks. He was missing both eyebrows, exposing his frontal bone. He had a broken nose, disformed neck. It was likely snapped. And he had a gash right behind the ear. His autopsy seemed to be vague, but was ruled as hypothermia. Then the last body was found. He had injuries, bruised lips, lower left side of his face was injured or bruised, internal bleeding on the forearm, and a shattered skull. His cause of death was a powerful force. They ruled it not to be human. So, what happened out there? Trace amount of radiation were detected on clothing and the entire Dyatlov Pass. No natural way the radiation got there, but yet still no explanation. So this is where we get down to the great theories. Theory 1 is that the local Mansi tribe killed the hikers. The evidence for that is a Mansi chung was found 100 meters from the campsite. A chung is a symbolic structure created at the time of a sacrifice. So did they sacrifice the hikers? That would explain the missing bodies and why they ran, but was later debunked because on that said sculpture or structure, there was a moose bone, so it looked to appear that a moose was sacrificed in that one. Second was an avalanche caused them to cut the tent and run, but it doesn't show how they would have lost eyes and body parts. So to me, that's not really, I mean, come on, guys. An avalanche? Third, they believed a Yeti attacked the hikers, possibly caught on hikers' camera, but it doesn't explain why you didn't see Yeti footprints or why radiation. Fourth, and my favorite theory, aliens. They've seen bright lights in the sky, or bright lights were seen in the sky, and bright lights were seen in the sky overhead the Dyatlov Pass on the night of the incident. And Simon, one of the bodies, was said to be photographing UFOs moments before they fled the tent. Pictures were developed and seems possible. It would also explain the radiation. Who knows the alien strength and what weapons they have? I mean, although they said the bruising and stuff could be inhuman, so aliens would be my first and top theory. The fifth is paradoxal undressing, which these are more psychological theories. The phenomenon when a person is suffering from hypothermia, yet they feel as if they are overheating, and this burning feeling causes the person to remove all the clothes and attempt to cool down. This one to me is not likely because the last four took clothes off the dead bodies to stay warm, and a fire was discovered by hiker 1 and 2. So, and it also doesn't explain the injuries. The sixth one is the Kármán vortex street, which is a theory where the winds produce ultra low frequency, which creates the Kármán vortex street. It's said to cause panic attacks, and again, this one doesn't explain the crazy gross injuries. And also, there's no two minds alike, so I don't really see people experiencing all the same psychological, knows. And the seventh, most craziest one, is the Soviets covered up the real events. Soviet Union covered up the Dyatlov Pass incident for nearly 3 years after it happened, and once revealed, showed public inconsistencies in its reporting and in the autopsies. Possible autopsies changed so no one would discover the truth. So what are they hiding? Were aliens? Were they hiding the Yeti? And it was also said a pair of military boots were reported found near the hikers' single file line. That would also kind of explain the radiation, because the event happened during the Cold War, so that we know that they were building strong nuclear stuff back then. So you tell me which theory more pulls you in. I have one strong theory, and the alien one is already a top theory for me, no matter what.
That's for you. That's it. There is no other theory.
Well, the aliens did it, 100%.
Okay, so I have some stuff to add. Thank you for pulling the weight on the research. So first, let me add some context. So I'm over here, pardon the light on my camera, but I'm reading from the historycollection.com, and this has a pretty good amount of stuff about the Dyatlov Pass incident. First thing I want to explain is I don't remember in your list of victims, but to clarify, they found 3 on the way back that were on their way, supposedly on their way back to the tent. So if you look at the map of how this was laid out, this is it's like a V. The tent's up here. Down here is the ravine, and up here is the tree where they think they were climbing and fell from. When the rescuers came, they reached the tree first, found the two at the tree, walked past the ravine, and found the three on the way back to the tent. They didn't find them in the gully or whatever because of the snow at the time, but it kind of laid it out better for me to see it that if you're in reference to how this looks, the tent's here, they came down the hill to the gully, and then two of them went up to this tree where they found the bodies. So the three were like between the tent and the gully. Four of them were in the gully, and then two of them were at the tree. So it kind of gave me a little bit more scope of how this, because looking at this map, and I don't know if you can pull this up. I'm gonna Discord it to you real quick though, because it's a really, really good kind of drawing of it. At least helps me understand why there's a bit of what may have went on, I guess is the best way to put it. See if you can throw that up there. I don't know if you can or not. Okay. So if you're looking at this kind of helped me see it. So the tent's up the mountain to the left. They find the three of them on the hillside. What they think were traveling back up to the tent. They walked past the four in the middle, and then which is the ravine, and then the tree is back up the hill to the right. So to me it just kind of laid out like, I wonder if they all went down to the tree line where this ravine was, something happened, and three of them went that way to the tent. I don't know if they got disoriented, but three of them went back up the hill to the tent. Two of them went off this other way, maybe to get a vantage point, which is what some people believe. They tried to climb the tree to get a vantage point. They fell out of the tree. They said branches were broke approximately 15 feet off the ground, so they think old boy could have landed on his chest, and that's why he had severe trauma and the fluid and all that stuff. And the other three had tried to make it back to the tent. Now, going through some of these other, I'm gonna be honest with you. My opinion in this is, I as much as I want to speculate, I feel like something Russian happened here. I really, really do, because we're talking about the Soviet Union. Okay, first of all, what drugged me to this story was Dyatlov was the name of the guy that got held accountable for the Chernobyl incident. And it's kind of weird because some of these names are actually some of the same people that were involved in that incident. And that's kind of what drugged me to this, because I like the show Chernobyl. I like that incident, and not that it happened in history, but I like studying it. But anyway, so I definitely think something Russian happened here. Now, what happened? I don't know. But let me scroll back up here. So the criminal case was closed in May of 1959. They closed it with the findings that an unknown compelling force, which the hikers were unable to overcome, made them do what they did. They stated that at a cedar tree, some of the hikers started a small fire, but it wasn't enough to keep the group alive. They fled the tent too fast to grab their winter gear. So the three went back to the tent to get the gear, but froze to death on the slope, exposed to elements, and possibly unable to see the tent in the dark. Now, I'm going to tell you, this whole unknown compelling force shit is something that the Russians would say. So
Redacted.
if you go to, I guess at the later on, there was a, where are we at? Snow slam, blah, 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 blah. They did an interview with the family did an interview with the BBC. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry, I lost my place. So in where is this? Anyway, they did an interview with the BBC, and the family pretty much admitted now, this was like in the 2000s, because the Soviet Union was no longer. Oh, here we go. Dyatlov's sister, Tatiana, told the BBC that the families were told, "You will never know the truth, so stop asking questions. Don't forget, in those days, if they told you to shut up, you were just to be silent." So the investigators told them, "You will never know the truth, so stop asking questions." That screams KGB. I mean, I can't give you a bigger response that the KGB would say in a situation that they're involved in. They don't want nobody to know. So she said, if the young people had been killed by an experiment, there was no way that the military would have allowed ordinary civilians, friends of the students, to join the search party on that mountain. So that's kind of in contrary to people believing that it was a military experience, because a lot of people don't believe that they would have allowed the rescue groups in the area. They would have just essentially been missing forever. So going back, they believed, let's see, the first one I had was the Yeti theory, obviously, which anybody that goes by the title cryptozoologist does not hold very much merit in my book. What the frick is a cryptozoologist? But they say that a Russian Yeti, attacked them or whatever. But to me, the Yeti thing would spark like immediate panic. The whole them walking orderly down the mountain to the tree side, that doesn't scream Yeti to me. They said there were no non-human or unaccounted footprints around the tent. A Yeti rampaging through a barren mountainside would at least leave minimal impressions in the snow, especially if the hikers were leaving footprints, but a Yeti that weighs 3 times their weight isn't. And then it says, unless the beast is capable of levitation, but that feeds into the alien theory. So now we're talking about a levitating Yeti. But again, that was one of the kind of broader ones. Another one which I found interesting, again, KGB related. So I don't know if you covered it, but they said that I know the one guy that got hurt or whatever at the beginning, went back, the 10th hiker. Now, did you cover Semyon Zolotarov other than his death? I don't think so, right? You talked about his death.
No, just that he is the one with the camera that has
Yes.
photos of possible alien activity.
So, interesting story about him was he was a last minute addition to the group. He was significantly older. He was 37, was a veteran of World War II. He had tattoos, mustache. He looked completely different than the group. A lot of his pictures still showed him getting along with the group and all that stuff, but he was a last minute addition. It says he and Thibault became close friends during the trek, a camaraderie that can be seen in the group's photos. Zena's diary from 24 January 1959 said that, now, mind you, let me back up a little bit, some more context. They actually started together as a group in January 23rd, 1959, and I apologize if you've covered that. But the 10 hikers left Sverdlovsk on a train for the winter adventure. So they spent a significant amount of time together. I don't say significant, but there was a little bit of time that they had before the actual hiking occurred. So the traveling on the train, and that's kind of where these relationships developed. But they said with Zena's diary from 24 January 1959 said of Zolotarov, with us is senior instructor of the Korov sport base, Alexander, one of the seaman's other names, Zolotarov. He knows a lot of songs. It's just happy someone that we are learning new songs. But he was a last minute addition to the group, and he didn't fit in with the group. He wasn't one of the young hikers and wasn't part of that group. So one of the theories is that they embedded KGB agents into the group. They believe, the theory suggests that Zolotarov, Kolovatov, and Krivon, I think that's, what's his name? The first guy you covered? What's the first dude?
Yuri.
Yeah, Yuri K, right? Yeah. So they thought the three of them were KGB agents, or this theory does. The other hikers did not know of their secret mission. They were to root out an American CIA cell. The three would deliver radioactive material to the CIA agents, pretending to be cooperative with the USA. But the three were to photograph the agents so that the KGB would be able to identify them, double crossing the CIA. The meeting went wrong. The US CIA agents figured out the betrayal and killed the group in a melee worthy of an action movie. This is why there was radiation on some of the hikers' clothes, and perhaps why the Russian officials had a technician measure the site with a Geiger counter to measure radiation levels. Friends and family of the hikers do not support this theory. Again, it's Russia. We'll never frickin' know. Now, here is a more mundane explanation for the radiation. So, in 1957, having graduated UPI, Peter, or what is his first name? Starts with a P. What's his name?
Which of who?
The K guy. What's his name?
Yuri?
Yuri?
Yeah.
Yuri K was an engineer at the, I'm sorry, I'm going to slaughter this, Chelyabinsk 40 nuclear weapons facility on the cleanup of a storage disaster that contaminated 23 square kilometers. All of this is fact, by the way, of the land in the southern Ural region. According to Yuri K's brother, there was a fairly large emission of radiation. In 1958, he tried to quit due to complete unwillingness to work in the system. His clothes tested positive for radiation, as did Zena's, who had lived in the contaminated zone. Yuri K's clothes could have picked up radiation during his work on the cleanup site. His parents kept a suitcase of his things with mittens, a hat, sweatshirt, and other items. His siblings were afraid of the suitcase, thinking the items inside might be radioactive. They buried the suitcase after their mother died. Yuri K could have reasonably brought some of his contaminated clothing on the Dyatlov hiking trip. I think I don't think the radiation plays a part in this. I think that the two of them, they lived in a contaminated zone. They worked there. Contamination doesn't just dust off when you get home. So I think that whatever clothes, sleeping bags, whatever they had and they kept on their person at home brought some of this radiation with them, and that's what's bringing that up. The next theory is rocket weapons testing. On March 2nd, 1959, a radiogram was sent to search headquarters saying the main mystery of the tragedy remains the exit of the entire group out of the tent. The reason could be an extraordinary natural phenomenon, such as the flight of a meteorological rocket observed on the 1st of February in Ivedell and by Carolyn's group. The theory is that Dyatlov group witnessed a top-secret rocket experiment or weapons test. The military killed the group to keep the program quiet. They staged the bodies around the slope at elevation 1079 to create a different story. The military then staged the crime scene to make it look like a compelling natural disaster with no known origin. They edited the hiker journals to support the staged crime scene. The whole rescue effort was a show to soothe the families and to put on a show for the public. Now, as much as this sounds kind of off the wall, this is one theory that does weigh into your part about the bodies removed post-mortem. Most theories don't cover this. Even your alien theory didn't cover this, to my knowledge. But this would explain the post-mortem moving of the body. So unless the aliens came back and dropped them after they were dead, I don't know. But this one, all I'm saying is it contributed to a reason why the bodies were moved post-mortem to stage the thing. There's of course no hard evidence to rope in the military. It says in 2008, a joint conference between the Ural State Technical University, formerly Ural Polytechnical Institute, and the Dyatlov Group Memorial Foundation lay the blame on military testing. According to Dyatlov's sister Tatiana, Dyatlov's parents, along with other families of the 9 hikers, believe this theory. So does Yuri Kunstovich, director of the Dyatlov Foundation and lifelong case researcher. Yuri Yundin, the Dyatlov hiker who left the group early for health reasons, also believed his friends were killed on purpose. Despite being an Arctic communist and Soviet patriot, Yudin felt there were government forces at work, but other researchers claim rocket and missile tests were based in Siberia, not the Ural Mountains, And there, of course, is no known evidence that the military was allegedly testing parachute mines in the area. No reported evidence of metallic shards from nearby weapons, blah, blah, blah. So, of course, that one's going to be, no evidence because it's freaking KGB.
Well,
The next one,
the military one had a slight evidence because they reported a boot was found near their single file line. A military boot.
yeah. So maybe a little bit more backing there. The next one is the Mansi, which you did cover a little bit. They lived in the area at the time and saw a phenomenon they could not explain. A Mansi woman who saw it said to BBC reporter Lucy Ash, "We were coming back from the forest and we could see the village ahead of us. This bright burning object appeared. It was wider at the front and narrow at the back, and there were sparks flying off of it." She says village elders warned that it was a bad omen. A member of the 1959 search party says the search team saw a fireball move from east to west, with other witnesses saying it moved from south to north, indicating some sort of object that had control of its movement like a missile. Oxidizer and debris from the rockets raining down on the tent would have caused confusion and pain that drove the hikers out of their tent. So, we talked about the why is this still a secret, because families were told to shut the hell up. It was the Soviet Union. Now, here's one that I find kind of interesting, is infrasound. This is the natural theory that they believed happened. Researcher Donnie Ecker, a filmmaker who traveled to the Dyatlov Pass in 2013, subscribes to the infrasound theory. Infrasound, in this case, was from
is this the Carmen vortex?
I guess.
theory?
I think there's a couple different names for it. It's the vortex. He just claimed it was infrasound theory. It's where this says it produced a vortex creating this one says small tornadoes. While these tornadoes were far enough away from the Dyatlov tent to avoid damage, the sound, both audible and inaudible, would have impacted the hikers. Infrasound produces vibrations that human cannot hear but react to physically. It also causes nausea, confusion, delirium, and may have reached a point where the hikers could not stand being confined to a tent. Working with a NOAA, that's the weather people, the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Ecker suggests infrasound drove the hikers from their tents, and once out, they couldn't find their way back in. It was too dark, too stormy, and the cold was already affecting them. Now, one of my theories here is the reason that they would have been in a line together is if they were truly suffering from something like this, they would have wanted to be together, almost holding on to each other, trying to get away from it. But you can't it's middle of the night, you can't see, you can't hear, but all you can do is feel your friends, right? So in that situation, it's kind of like when you're a kid in school and the teacher cuts off the lights and you have to try to find your way around or whatever. What are you going to do? You're going to stay in a line. Naturally, you're going to put your hand on the shoulder in front of the person in front of you, and you're going to walk and trust the person in the front. I think that's a very good explanation of what could have happened. Then, if you refer back to the map, they are going downhill. They get down to that ravine area, and all fucking hell breaks loose. Somebody walks off the fucking cliff, whatever. Because I think when they walk down the hill, they're all together. Okay, they get to the bottom, and 4 motherfuckers fall off the cliff and go down into that shit, into the ravine. Then all panic sets in. The leader's in the ditch, dead, somebody screaming, oh hell. So Dyatlov and them 2 dudes go, hey, we're going back up to the tent, and in a hurry. They don't make it because now they're not doing the hold on to the shoulder thing. They're just walking back up. The other 2 say, we're going to go this way and try to find help. They find the forest and are able to try to build a fire and do things. To me, that sounds like a reasonable explanation. But I don't know about the whole disorienting sound thing, vortexes and tornadoes, but it sounds like once they got out of the tent for whatever reason, okay, and I've been backpacking in the New Mexico mountains. I did 2 trips, 113 miles, and like 12 days, and shit happens, man. Like, I mean, we ran into mountain lions, we ran into bears, and I'm gonna tell you what, you can say experienced hiker. I considered myself an experienced hiker. And there was times in panic when I couldn't find the fucking zipper to my tent in pitch black darkness. And this is freaking
the 21st century, flashlights and cell phones and shit. Imagine what they were going through. So I don't put it past the fact that they may not have been able to find the zipper, just cut themselves out of the tent. Then they all get together and they go, okay, we're going to walk this way, away from whatever the hell's going on. They follow each other. They get to the bottom of that hill. Like I said, 4 or 5 dudes fall off, and they're like, oh shit, people are dead. And they split up, and all panic sets in. To me, that's a very legitimate explanation.
But then there's some that debunk that. How do you explain the missing eyeballs, the missing
So
jaw
I'm getting there.
incisor?
Getting there. So there is debunk to the infrasound. All 9 hikers would have had to reach a frenzied point from the ultrasound that they evacuated as fast as they could without grabbing outdoor gear. Again, I spoke to that. And the physical impact of ultrasound that would cause a panic to get out of the tent would have had to reach such a pitch that they felt the need to cut their way out of. Again, I talked about that. So anyway, we'll get to the why they looked the way they looked. The indigenous Mansi, the hikers wrote several journal entries and took photographs of Mansi markings on the trees. Indigenous Mansi in the area led a semi-traditional way of life, hunting, fishing, and herding reindeer. Despite their hold on tradition, they adopted some of the modern technology and lifestyle of Russian and Soviet culture. This theory suggests the hikers crossed into Mansi territory. The Mansi were known to have been in the region of Mansi Chum. A temporary shelter was found 61 meters, approximately 200 feet from the Dyatlov camp. Perhaps the hikers stumbled into a religious sacred area, or Mansi claimed hunting areas, or maybe some Mansi wanted to rob the hikers and steal their gear, given the difficulties of living in the Khalt-Salki region. Mansi would have known how to assault the hikers and cover their tracks using their advanced hunting skills. Now, they quickly disproved this idea that the Mansi wanted to rob the hikers. The group's valuables were all still in the tent. There were cameras, alcohol, boots, clothes, food. There was 1,685 rubles, the original budget for the hikers, was still in the tent. Rustam Solobdin.
Hold on. Pause. Oh, you Tarkov people. How many rubles?
1,685. That's nothing. That's chump change, bro.
Yeah.
The one guy had 310 rubles still in his pocket. There would have been plenty of time for them to loot. They would have been free to take anything that they could use and dispose of the remaining items, including the tent, personal effects. They could have erased any evidence. Blaming the Mansi was an easy route, and there were Mansi arrested and questioned, but the Soviet investigators found no evidence. The Mansi were not violent people. They were well disposed towards Russians after living with Russian and Soviet influencers for generations. In addition to their nonviolent nature, Mansi hunters participated in the search party, but one of the main theories that the hikers had watered into sacred territory or into areas protected by the Mansi was disproven quickly. The Dyatlov hikers were not on sacred Mansi property. So that one's out the window. One of the more recent ones is the 2019 snow slab theory. In 2019, Russian authorities led by prosecutor Andrei Kurikov looked at the Dyatlov Pass incident again. Kurikov's study found that the compelling natural force was a snow slab avalanche. And a snow slab avalanche, the surface layer of snow is compact, dense, and heavy. The snow beneath the crust is weaker. When the crust breaks free from the underlying weaker snow, it forms a slab that moves down a slope. The theory says digging out the upper layer of snow around the tent to make a level place to camp weakened the snow crust. As the winds blew possibly 104 kilometers or 65 miles an hour, was what the weather specialist said it was that night, could have destabilized the slab. If additional snow had blown onto the slab and added weight, or strong winds pushed on the slab, it could have forced the slab to avalanche. The report couldn't explain scientifically how an avalanche could happen without leaving any evidence around the tent site. They dug into the snow on the side of the slope. The angle of the slope wasn't steep enough to trigger an avalanche. Additionally, the hole the Dyatlov group dug for the tent had been created at least 9 hours before the supposed avalanche. If the snow were unstable, it would have collapsed soon after it was dug out, not 9 hours later. So that one was thrown out. More recently, the 2021 avalanche theory of Huzrin and Gom. Sorry if I'm slaughtering that. Geotechnical engineer Alexander Puzrin of the ETH Zurich and Joanne Guam of the Snow Avalanche Simulation Laboratory at EPFL tackled the question of why an avalanche wouldn't have happened until well into the night when the hikers dug the tent site in the evening. They found that the shallow slope was actually not too shallow for an avalanche. The slope is close to 30 degrees, well enough for an avalanche to occur. The appearance of the snow layers make it appear shallower than it is. Snow conditions made avalanche even more likely. There was no snow the night of the Dyatlov tragedy. As with the 2019 snow slab theory, the dense top layer of snow slides over the weaker underlayer. When the Dyatlov group dug the pit for their tent, it destabilized the crusty layer. It held for a while, then slid. The slab slid down over the weak underlayer and toward the tent. The destabilization happened when extra snow piled on the destabilized layer. Even though there wasn't snow that night, katabatic winds could have carried snow just to the wrong place. Katabatic winds are winds that blow down hills as gravity pulls higher density air downward, letting the lower density air rise. That snow would have accumulated just enough over time, hours to the event, to cause a slab to roll down the hill. They ran simulations finding the avalanche might not have been much more than a rush of snow and ice about 16 feet. This was just enough to fill the pit dug by the Dyatlov group. It was covered by fresh snowfall before the search parties discovered the tent site 26 days later. The avalanche would have disappeared without a trace. Now, supposedly, Anna and Elsa from the Frozen movie contributed to this research. The computer snow animation used in the movie Frozen impressed Puser and Gom. They connected with Disney's snow effects specialist who shared the movie's code. The research team changed the code to simulate the impacts of a small avalanche on the human body. They applied General Motors seatbelt safety cadaver crash test results, and these tests revealed different scenarios about heavy snow impact on the hikers as they were in the tent. They found cadaver test results that most resembled the tent setup where the hikers lay their skis under the tent to create a rigid platform to sleep on. This allowed the team to run scenarios about how the tent and the hikers would have held up under even a smaller avalanche, one that would hit the tent, fill the pit, but have not much impact on the surrounding area. As the hikers slept, the mound of dense snow, possibly a slab, rolled down the slope and onto the rigid surface. This held them in place and caused severe injuries like broken ribs and skull fractures. It can take time for these injuries to kill someone. The hikers would not have known whether the first avalanche was the whole incident. It could have been followed by a larger, more deadly avalanche. This could feasibly have prompted them to flee the tent as fast as possible. Professional mountaineer Freddie Wilkinson, speaking with the National Geographic magazine, said some slabs can be quite hard, and it's very plausible that can result in blunt trauma wounds. Puser and Gom recognizes the expertise of the Dyatlov and the other 8 hikers. They say even professional guides and mountaineers can be caught off guard by nature. Guam says in National Geographic, people don't want it to be an avalanche. It's too normal. He notes that nobody will ever know completely what happened to the Dyatlov hikers, but the testing offers a reasonable explanation of the compelling natural force that drove the hikers out of the tent without proper gear for the freezing night and toward their death. The researchers attempt to only address the cause of the compelling natural force behind the evacuation. The avalanche counter-arguments, the science of snow slab or small avalanche could logically explain the compelling natural event that forced a sudden evacuation. Fear of another, possibly larger avalanche would explain why they would not get far away from the site, even though they lacked proper protection against the elements. A small snow slide could explain how some of their skis and ice axe, the small sword-like item between the vertical skis in the photo, remained upright after the event. If there wasn't much snow, but enough to frighten the group, the hole dug for the tent may have absorbed most of the snow and impact, but Pusen and Guam are very clear that their research focused exclusively on the science of snow movement. So Pusen and Guam do not investigate motives or past evacuation events. Even if the theory of the compelling natural event is correct, it doesn't fully solve the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass incident. Their version of the compelling natural event has been scrutinized further by Dr. Vladimir Borzanov of the Moscow State University of Aeronautics. He notes the sample site visited by the researchers and where avalanche was observed is 2 miles away from the Dyatlov site. So they supposedly proved that one wrong. Sorry, I know that one went on for a minute, but I thought it was interesting because it included the Frozen movie.
I wonder if they just let it go.
Huh?
I wonder if they just let that one go.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, that's some of the big ones. They still go on to talk about we will never know. I mean, it's the Soviet Union. We're never going to know what happened to them. We can sit here and speculate all day long. To me, where I'm landing, my theory is somewhere around this natural infrasound vortex theory. I don't think that there were tornadoes that caused inaudible reactions to sound. I don't know, but that is the most logical explanation I've heard. And I think people are choosing to make them being cutting themselves out of the tent into something that it's not. It's not, to me as a hiker, it's not crazy that they had to me, if I'm trapped in somewhere and I'm claustrophobic and I slept in a 1.5 man tent with two of two of us weighing 200 pounds apiece, it's tight. I'm not fumbling around at 2 o'clock in the morning in the pitch black dark if I think I'm going to die in the tent. The first thing that's happened is my pocket knife's coming out of my pocket and I'm cutting the freaking tent open. I don't care if it's fire. I don't care if it's noise. We're getting out of the freaking tent. So I think people are using the circumstances to create some of these theories. I think that's a very normal thing that could occur, but the panic that shows to cut yourself out of the tent. Because if it was just something normal, hey, we need to get out of here, we need to all stand around and talk, you would take the time to find the zipper. But if you're panicked enough to, hey, I need to get the hell out of this tent now, and you cut it, and then we all get out and we all get in line and we walk down the hill, to me, that shows some sort of they were disoriented and they chose to stay together. And your training would teach you exactly what happened. Get in a single file line, follow each other closely, and try to get to help. They do that, and then, like I standing by, they got to the bottom of that pass, and somebody fell in that damn ravine. The snow gave way. Whatever. You might even combine the avalanche theory with that theory that they got down there and the snow gave way, and 4 of them fell off, and they ended up in the ravine, and then that all the avalanche theory would also go into why the bodies were moved post-mortem, because if a bigger avalanche occurred after the incident, it would have moved all their bodies to different places. And nobody in any of the research says how far they were moved. They just look disturbed. So maybe the avalanche movement, I don't know, but there's a lot of alignment with this theory of the disorientation. Now, what caused the disorientation? Is it the sound theory? Was it, hell, for all we know, a military man could have been standing there with a gun saying, "Get the fuck out of the tent." And he told him, "Hey, cut yourself out of the tent. Get the hell out of the tent now," and held a gun to him. I don't know. That would explain the military boot. That's weird, but I don't know. There's a lot of theories that work together here. There's some that are just crazy. Even the alien one. I don't know. I really don't know. But my theory is, I'm saying they were in their tents. Something happened that startled them enough to where they didn't think that they needed to wait the time to get the zipper. They just cut themselves out. And then they got in a line because they were disoriented and they started going for help. 4 of them motherfuckers fell in the ravine, and then all hell broke loose. 2 of them ran up the hillside one way, 2 of them ran up the hillside, or 3 of them ran up the hillside the other way. The other 3, which were in the avalanche path, didn't make it for whatever reason. Tripped, fell, got covered in snow, died. The other 2 made it to the top to look for help from the tree, fell out of the fucking tree, and landed on their chest. And that explains all the blunt trauma and shit, but they were looking for help. So that's my theory. That's what I think. I think it's a very normal thing. It's still very sad, but I think it's a very normal thing that happened. And I'm done ranting.
It just doesn't explain that the last 4 that fell in the ravine. So
Hold on. I know where you're going. So those bodies laid in that ravine for over a month, essentially underwater, because they said the snow melted. So the claims are, again, don't know, but the claims are that, one, the bodies were much more deteriorated than the others because of they were in the elements for that long. Animals came along and pecked at the bodies. Now, the only I guess, what do you want to say? Counter to that theory is that some people argue that the parts that were missing seemed meticulously picked out. That it was like not that an animal had gotten to him. It was like that it had been removed. Now that I don't know because there ain't no pictures of that shit. So I don't know, but they did say that those bodies laid in that ravine for I don't know however long, over a month, and were much more deteriorated when they were found.
Except one of the bodies showed there was blood in the stomach, so the missing body parts had happened while she was alive.
Why would blood in the stomach prove that?
It would prove that her tongue was removed while she was still alive.
Okay, she fell off the ravine and bit it or some shit. I don't fucking know.
Except the
But
whole
blood in the stomach doesn't mean that you don't stop. If you're dead, you have no gag reflex. So if something causes you to bleed in your mouth after you're dead, your throat isn't sealed up. That theory doesn't make any sense to me.
It's just
Your throat doesn't contract when you're dead unless you choke or something. But if you're dead and you're laying there and all your muscles have released and something comes by and rips your tongue out of your mouth and you start bleeding or your blood releases, then it's going to go into your stomach. I don't understand that.
that's just apart from the coroner and
Coroner.
coroner. And they said that they weren't found in a ravine. They were found in the ravine, but had created a den that was found by the Manseys in the ravine. So they had created something to survive longer.
Maybe they fell. I mean, they fell in a damn ravine. Maybe they didn't die right away. I don't know. I'm just telling you my theory. If you look at that map, that's really what kind of sunk it for me was they all walked orderly towards the tree. So they all walked towards that ravine. Something happened at the ravine that split them up. Maybe four of them decided to stay there. And another theory is that they made camp there, all of them, and did not realize with the amount of snow that they had made camp over top of the ravine. And that at some point in the night, that ravine gave way and the four of them fell deeper into the ravine and then they split up. That's another theory that I read about. So, I don't know.
Knock knock.
Who's there?
KGB. I do have a question for you.
Hmm.
Do you think this mystery survives because the truth is complicated or because someone never wanted the full truth known?
I think it's because the KGB told the families to shut the hell up. If that part is true, if what Tatiana said to the BBC is true, that's why we will never know, is because the KGB and the Soviet Union told them to shut the hell up and don't say anything. And not because I'm not saying that they said that because they are involved. If you know anything about the Soviet Union in history, especially like the Chernobyl incident and things like that, that the Soviet Union was so fearful of these kind of stories to get to the Western world and more bad press be about the Soviet Union. They controlled it just like North Korea. They controlled what came in and out of that country. So of course they're going to tell the families keep your mouth shut because they don't want the U.S. getting the story and running it in all the papers that the Soviet Union let 9 hikers die in the mountainside. So whatever the reason was, that's why the mystery has lasted, but we'll never know why they told him to be quiet.
Yeah, because apparently this happened 3 years, or the Soviet Union had known about this for 3 years and finally released
It was just like Chernobyl. How long did they wait before? The only reason that the Western world found out about the Chernobyl incident was because it was so bad that the radioactive material traveled to Sweden and the radars in Sweden picked it up and called the U.S. So,
I think the aliens and the Soviet Union did it.
fuck the aliens. Aliens didn't have nothing to do with it.
Oh.
All right. Got anything else? So your theory, your final theory is aliens.
My final theory is that Russia covered it up because of the aliens. Their alien experiments got out of hand, so then they covered it up It would explain the missing eyes, the missing tongues, the missing jaw incisor, the bruising, and everything.
All right. Well, there you have it.
Aliens exist.
Okay, so that's over. So I apologize last week. I got busy and I was a little slow on getting the podcast out. And I also got corrected. The YouTube and Spotify version will be out on Sunday, not Friday. Sundays following the podcast on Twitch. We also are rebooting the Patreon. So we'll have some more behind the scenes pictures, more of the research that we do. Actually, all of our research will be on there. The full VOD will be on there. But if you're interested in the Patreon, go check it out. It's linked. Do we have a link for the Patreon? Do you have the links?
I do have them in the Discord, yes.
Oh, in the Discord. So if you're not in the Discord, check out the Discord. But the Patreon's got a lot of good stuff. I try to make a pretty in-depth recap, but also include a lot of our research that we don't have time to cover here. And there's some other pictures and things like that that we find that we don't release on the actual podcast, but we put it in the Patreon. So go over there and check it out. You can pay a monthly subscription over there. Or you can, if you're really interested in one topic, you can always just do the one topic release as well. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, we'll be up on YouTube and Spotify on Sunday. Go check us out on Spotify. We need a little love over on Spotify. I appreciate everybody's interaction with the YouTube. YouTube's really taken off for us. And of course, our Twitch family over here supporting us. But yeah, so we will announce the next topic in the Discord. So check us out there. But as always, stay spooky.
Stay spooky.